Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Designing Your Professional Future. I think I speak for both Anna and myself when I say thank you. Thank you for joining us here tonight, stealing you away from your dinner hour. We're happy to join you and spend this evening with you. Designing Your Professional Future will take place here, live, tonight. You're here, you've done it, and next Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30. So we're looking forward to having you and happy to get started.
Okay, so over the next two sessions, we are going to be immersing ourselves in two different methodologies, specifically design thinking, life design, and coaching. And so the goal here is to create a space for you to explore and experiment with your own professional futures. And as we're going to get into, a big part of this, working through the exercises, learning and engaging with these methods, is starting to get into the mindset of being comfortable in an uncomfortable space. And David Kelly of IDEA, which is a design thinking consultancy, talks about how we have to allow ourselves to wallow in this state of not knowing. And that in fact, in order to develop any new or novel idea in life or in our careers, we have to be able to be comfortable not having the answer. And so what Carly and I would like to invite you to do during the next two sessions is to really embrace not knowing what's going to happen, not having the answer, being a bit uncomfortable, and maybe embracing some of these processes and practices and exercises that could be completely unfamiliar to you. So starting to embrace this new territory as we kind of work through this experimentation together. We're going to have fun. It's a low risk environment, and we'll say that over and over again, but just making sure that we're starting to frame our mindset as we move forward. And so the next slide, Carly, you want to kick it off by introducing yourself?
Yes, can you tell we're excited? So before we begin, this is us, Carly and Anna. You can probably tell from the photos that Anna has a much more exciting life than I do. But this is me. I am Carly. I work with the Office of Executive Education at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, designing coaching models and managing our leadership custom programs. I also work very closely with our Academy for Emerging Leaders, which is a 5-week leadership development program for employees with 5 or less years of work experience. I've worked at Carey on and off for over a decade now, and honestly just love talking to people about their professional growth and development. My professional background is in leadership development. I've spent the majority of my career working in business schools, obviously here at Carey and also at the Smeal College of Business at Penn State in both administrative and teaching roles. And I currently teach the essentials of leadership coaching. So you'll hear a little bit of that tonight.
And my name is Anna Fitzgibbon, and similar to Carly, I love being a part of people's professional journeys, and that's reflected in the work that I do. I earned my MBA from Carey Business School. I now teach in innovation and human-centered design, specifically the first 2 courses in the human-centered design series, Design Thinking for Innovative Problem Solving and Advanced Design Thinking. I also am the founder and owner of my own company, Outgrowth, which is an immersive learning company where I connect students and professionals to unique out-of-the-box experiences that not only help them to build professional competencies, but the goal is to help them to rethink the linear paths that we were told will one day lead to success and fulfillment. And so obviously this workshop that we're going to do over the next 2 weeks is a perfect fit. I love working with people, getting them outside of their comfort zones. I'm also a corporate wellness coach. And so I have a really diverse professional path, and I believe in the fulfillment that can come from that. So I'm really excited to get started with you all for the next 2 weeks.
So let's talk about why you're here. And again, we'll be talking a lot about the first years of your professional life, but the tools that Anna and I will be talking about over the course of the next 2 sessions can really be used anytime you're considering making a big change, making a career transition. Our hope is that you walk away from these 2 sessions with some real strategies that you can use moving forward in a variety of capacities. So as I mentioned, Anna and I have worked in executive education for years now. We work in and develop change management programs for professionals at every level. I don't know about you, Anna, but we have VPs, mid-level managers in my courses, but it's really the early career professionals with less than 3 years of experience that I think take the most from this work. And it makes sense. Studies from Harvard Business School say that in normal times, right? So not now, I'm saying now is not a normal time. We're still in that pandemic, but pre-pandemic in normal times, that the first 3 to 5 years of your professional life, in that time, you are really inundated with new information. You're trying to navigate your new role, understand this new organizational culture, how to navigate professional relationships. A lot of times, in the first 3 to 5 years, you've likely had maybe college friendships, grad school friendships, high school friendships. So you're really trying to figure out how to develop these professional networks, these professional relationships, and work within them. Additionally, logistically, you're trying to figure out your workspace, where you go for resources, support, who you can go to when you have questions or when you're looking for a mentor. So with all of this new information, this new learning, it ultimately influences who we are for the remainder of our career. Some important stuff. So these first formative years will affect who you are as a professional, who you are as a leader, how you will manage teams, and how you will continue to create these strong professional relationships for years to come. And then there was the pandemic, right? So in addition to all of that new learning, we were sort of thrown into this umbrella of a global pandemic. Again, a January study by the Harvard Business Review said that professionals with less than 5 years of work experience have been professionally the most affected during this time. They disproportionately have been affected by layoffs, lack of support, resources. They're more isolated and they don't have these strong, long-standing professional networks to pull on when they've really needed it. In addition, you can see my wall back here. We're in home offices. You're not in an office with your supervisor right there, sort of seeing your really great skills and attributes, but you have to work a little bit harder to show them. So this has been a difficult time. But there is hope, my friends, all right? Professionals with less than 5 years of work experience have been able to excel and actually become role models in how they can be flexible, agile, how to make effective change at a faster rate than even their more seasoned colleagues during this time. I think we all know that this group, you are a whiz at technology. So you've actually been able to assist and support, again, more seasoned colleagues in adapting to some of these technological changes. So some good and bad. So now talking about sort of your specific career and where you go from here, that's where Anna and I come in.
So we have these 2 precious sessions together. And so as Carly mentioned, it's really important that we're here today for all the reasons that she just listed. And so let's talk about what our goals are moving forward. So for the next 2 sessions, we have 3 key goal areas. The first is we want this to be a place where you can experiment and explore. Again, it's an immersive environment. We like to call this a living lab. So this isn't a simulation. This isn't 2 hours of lecture on the theory of building out a professional future. This is about real-time connection to yourself, understanding who you are today, and giving yourself the space to kind of experiment with what if or what could be. Secondly, we want this to be a space where we can bring together 2 methodologies that we really believe in. And so what we think makes this session and the next session so unique is that Carly and I come from different areas of expertise. Carly is very much an expert in coaching. My experience lies in design thinking and life design. And so we've merged these 2 together to create something that's really unique for you, that we think will help to guide your work, not just in these sessions, but years beyond these sessions. We think these are 2 really valuable methodologies. And finally, our goal is to come up with a set of tools for you. And so the tools that we're going to practice today, the exercises that we're going to use, these are things that you can revisit over and over again. And maybe most importantly, what we want to instill in you is a mindset shift. And so whenever it comes to coaching or design thinking or life design, we can give you a set of tools. We can give you a 5-step or a 3-step process. But what's really important about adopting these tools is shifting the way we think about building our way forward. And so that's where the value really comes in. And that's what we're hoping to leave with you today and next Wednesday. And so moving into kind of how we've structured this out, when we look at the two different methods, we've noticed, yes, they're very different methods, but there's a lot of overlap, and that provides a lot of value in that overlap. And so when we think about design thinking, life design are 5 key stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. They're designed to be iterative and cyclical, and it's a really valuable process. Coaching is a 3-step process: assessment, agenda, and action. And there's a lot of overlap. What really unites these two processes is that they're great processes for engaging in when we want to experience any type of growth, when we're going through any type of transition or change, or when we just want to experiment with what could be the next step in our either personal or professional lives. At the end of working through both of these different processes, the goal again is that mindset shift along with a big bag of tools. And so our hope for you is that by the end of session 2, we have a renewed commitment. We have a renewed commitment, number 1, to iteration. So we're constantly committing to iterating, and iterating means we're building our way forward, we're reassessing, we're figuring out where we went wrong, we're figuring out how we can rework. And sorry, Carly, would you mind going back one slide? Perfect. We also hope you have a renewed commitment to getting unstuck. And so what we want to emphasize in working through these processes is that even if you've built out your next step forward in your professional future, there is still going to be a point with 100% certainty where you feel stuck. It could be just you're getting tired, you need a new challenge. It could be that circumstances change. It could be that you're bored. But either way, you're always going to find a time in your professional life where you feel a little bit stuck. And these tools are perfect to pull out when you feel a little stuck. So we have that renewed commitment to always asking, how could this be better? How could we build our way forward? Which comes to the third kind of reframing is, how do we build our way forward? And so recommitting to that idea that every time we take a step forward into the unknown, even if we don't have a set agenda, even if we don't have a set plan, the idea is that we're always making progress. And in entrepreneurship, we call this failing forward, right? That we're always, as we move forward, even if it's just to figure out that we're going the wrong way, that's information that's valuable. So always kind of reframing these tools, these methodologies as perfect to help us get to that next step, even if it's not the direction we want to end up in. And so for the next 2 sessions, we've overlaid, as you can see here, we've overlaid these methodologies and broken them up into chunks. And so today we're working through in life design, empathy and define. So that's self-empathy, self-definition. And in coaching, we're working in self-assessment and agenda setting. And really what these steps of coaching and life design comprise are this idea of understanding ourselves. So what makes us tick? What do we value? When do we feel aligned? When do we feel like we have energy or flow? Understanding these pieces and really building in the time and space to explore this is so important before we design solutions. And so we do front load and spend a lot of time in this process. It's between weeks 1 and week 2 that we're going to start to move into, you see in this green box, ideate. And ideate is where we take all that information we learned about ourselves and we start to think, okay, how are we going to use this information to start to develop new ideas or a new way forward? And then finally, next week is where we really start to put things into a tangible format. So we take all that self-knowing, we take all those great bases of ideas that we came up with, and we start to say, okay, well, how could this look? How do we prototype and test? How do we put things into action? And that's where we're going to see those processes go next week. Moving on to Carly with the schedule for today.
Thank you. So as a coach, I love a schedule. I love an agenda. I love to know where we're going. So talking specifically about today, Anna's already introduced really our 2 pillars of growth, which she mentioned will focus on the specific areas of our 2 different but similar methodologies. Design thinking and coaching really overlap in a lot of ways in order to allow you to start thinking about your professional work, who you are, what's important to you, and what you want to be working on when these 2 courses are over and into the future. So next we'll be talking about the curious designer mindset, which is absolutely necessary. Anna touched on this. So if you think more broadly about your professional work, where you want to go, having this sort of questioning, curious, open-ended, iterative mindset is absolutely necessary. And then Anna called it the living lab. I love that. The bulk of our session today will really be experiential. So Anna and I will be taking you through 2 separate activities where you'll start to be introduced to these tools, right? Anna and I both love a tool belt. So these tools that you'll put into your tool belt, where you'll be practicing them in the activities and be able to sort of extend on them beyond our course today. Finally, we'll close out our time together, sort of recapping what's happened and with a little bit of conversation about that homework. I know it's tough, 2 weeks and we gave you homework. So some closing notes, homework, and then we'll talk about what to expect for next week. Our time's gonna fly. So again, while Anna and I work within 2 different personal change management methodologies, there's a lot of overlap. We keep saying that, right? Anna and I come from 2 different places, but whenever we talk, we say, oh, me too, me too, me too. So there's a lot of overlap there. Both life design and coaching are 2 incredibly iterative processes where you can really sort of move through the process. We have these steps, you move through them. It feels and looks linear, but the great thing about it is when you're focusing on your growth, you can move through them, jump back to ideation, jump back to agenda, depending on your needs, depending on where you're at. Additionally, both life design and coaching are process oriented, where the steps you move through, the steps you take, are just as beneficial as the end result. You learn so much by going through these really intentional processes. So our goal over the next 2 weeks is really to introduce you to this, talk about how they work, again, give you a whole bunch of tools so that you can take those and start working on it on your own. So the first tool that I want to introduce, I know I mentioned this, is probably the most important one. Anna mentioned it as well, especially as you're crafting your plans for your professional work. It's the mindset that we use as designers. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, during class, in between, afterwards, in the evenings, in the mornings, we just implore you to engage in this curious designer mindset. It's a mindset that is based on sort of keeping your objective, your agenda item at the center of what's important, but really being playful, trying out new things, knowing that you can sort of, play with things and it can be messy and it doesn't have to be right. Anna calls this a low risk environment. That's where we're at. You can sort of try things out and there's no right or wrong answer, but really having an appreciation for these processes and the benefits that it brings to us. A big piece of the curious designer mindset is when you run into obstacles, when you run into questions, to not sort of give up or immediately jump to a solution, but sort of come at it with a curious, questioning approach. Michael Bungay-Stanier describes this as taming your advice monster. So a lot of times when we run into an obstacle or somebody asks us for advice, we immediately try and jump to a solution, right? So it's pushing away the impulse or dominant response in your mind to find a solution quickly, no matter what it is. But really seeing this new learning and these obstacles as an opportunity to dig deeper, sort of come at it with a questioning spirit, because the outcome of that, the outcome of going through these processes, is a result that is richer, deeper, and probably more personal for you. So again, the curious designer mindset, please use this as we move through the course, try it out. I know it feels sort of up there, but if you have any questions about it, let us know.
So before we head into our exercises, where I think the concepts really become solidified, it's difficult at first to abstractly understand coaching or life design. But I think it's important before we delve into any exercises to take apart life design and coaching and just kind of explain a little bit about them. So rather than go through each step of life design or design thinking, I think it's better that you experience those. But I do think to frame the experience, it's important to talk about what makes life design so special. And so there are so many unique features to life design. A lot of them have to do with the mindset. I've extracted the 3 top values that, in my opinion, I think really help to shape the value of life design. So I've pulled these from different resources. You're more than welcome to look at them. We also provide them for you next week, but these are really great books if you're interested in delving a little deeper into life design. But number one, first and foremost, we talked about this concept of iteration. There's a dedication to unrelenting iteration. And so what that means is we are constantly looking to how we can build it differently and build our way forward. And so through this mindset, we're actually expecting failure. We expect to go into something for it not to work and to gather just enough information to know how to move forward. Number two, there's this idea of this bias to action. And in life design, what this means is you're not sitting on a bench or sitting at your desk contemplating what it would be like to make a next move. You are actually deciding how you can take some low risk, low level steps today and tomorrow in order to learn more about what would work or wouldn't work about that next step. Hand in hand with this is this idea of reframing. And in reframing, we're taking those typical dysfunctional beliefs that for some reason we've always been told or we've always just internally believed that really lead to decision paralysis. And so one of those major reframing points that we have to make is reframing the dysfunctional belief that in order to make a life change, it has to be a big, bold, risky move. And in fact, that's a totally dysfunctional belief and not at all connected to what we should be doing when we build our way forward. In fact, the reframe of that is we can take a small step today that's low risk, that's low radar, that's low cost, just to learn enough about how we want to proceed. And so hand in hand, this bias to action and reframing, really important parts of life design. And finally, there's this concept of life design about growing with a tribe. And I think that typically, when it comes to professional development or building a career, we tend to see this as a bit of a solo journey. And while it's true that, yes, we are in charge of our own decisions and our own path forward, the reality is that we need a network. We need a tribe around us. We need people to inspire us. We need people to collaborate with. We need people to bounce ideas off of. And these are not just people who exist within our workplaces, but people in other industries, people with different levels of experience, people with different backgrounds. So just keeping these in mind, this is what makes that life design mindset so special. And this is what we want to proceed with when we go through these exercises and we actually physically and kind of mentally go through the steps of life design. One more point that I did want to make is this idea of grit. And so with grit, studies have shown that perseverance over IQ, over talent, over natural ability has the potential to lead to success. And so grit has a lot of power, and this idea that we can push through obstacles and we can overcome barriers, all of this really valuable, really powerful. But I think what's important, and this is something that's referenced in The Power of Passion and Perseverance, it's also referenced in Designing Your Work Life, is that there are certain key factors that need to be in place for us to really engage this kind of idea of perseverance and grit. Not only is it important for us to sustain grit, but it's important for us to stay aligned with our goals as we kind of move through our professional path. So these are the four things. One, it really is helpful if we have some level of intrinsic interest in what we're doing and some concept of purpose, some deeper connection to the work that we're doing. We also have to have the capacity to practice whatever it is that we're in over and over again and learn from our mistakes. And we also have to have some level of hope, whether it's hope for the future or hope for a bigger purpose that we are going to achieve. And so again, this just helps us to keep in mind that not only is perseverance and grit something really important as we kind of continue to iterate and build our way forward, but it's important to connect that perseverance and grit to these greater underlying kind of core values so that we are staying aligned as we make our decisions.
Thanks, Anna. Isn't grit such a great word?
I love it.
So I also want to introduce the field of coaching and what it is, just so that we're all on the same page and we're all using the same definition. A lot of times coaching is confused with counseling, consulting, mentoring, but coaching is actually quite different. So in a coaching relationship, the coach and the client are actually on the same plane. They're equals. And the thinking behind coaching is that the client has this objective, this agenda item, this goal, this piece that they want to be working on, but they have questions around it. They're not sure of how to move forward. So they work with a coach. But a coach's role is not to give them the answer and tell them what to do, but to really sort of engage in the conversation, the coaching process, and ask them powerful questions because the person has the answers within them, right? You are an expert on your own life. And I'll say this over and over again, Anna and I do not know what is best for you. I don't even know what's best for me sometimes, but you know, we will take you through these processes, we will take you through these activities, but our hope is that by engaging in the process, you will begin to think about sort of your professional goals in a deeper, richer way, and perhaps answer some of your own questions. So, in the most basic of ways, we define coaching as making progress or intentional change. Coaching is defined by the International Coaching Federation as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creating process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. The three pieces I want to pull out of this are partnering, process, and maximize. In a coaching relationship, again, the coach is not the expert. They are sort of a sounding board, a facilitator who is committed to the client's growth, committed to the process, committed to the conversation. And the focus of the engagement is really on, what do you want? Coaching really comes down to answering one single question. What do you want? Professionally, what do you want? What do you want to be doing next year? What do you want to be doing 5 years from now? So it's having the client answer the question, what do you want? And then moving them through the process of what they can be doing, what they can be working on a daily basis, a weekly process, in order to get them to that final answer. So clearly I love coaching, and now I'm trying to convince you to as well, but this is important stuff. So study after study has found that coaching leads clients to change in a more in-depth, faster, more efficient way than if they were doing it on their own. Coaching brings about new awareness, a prioritizing of our own needs. I think we all need that right now. I know I do. Improving strategic skills, a mindset shift to more of a growth mindset, positive mindset, a change in perspective about a specific situation, enhanced decision-making, increased confidence. So a coach brings sort of new skills, new attributes to light that may not have ever been revealed without that relationship, without that dynamic. All right, Anna and I are gonna stop talking soon, I promise. We're getting there, all right? We're getting to that lab. So again, as we start to build out our toolkit, the first step is really gaining an understanding of where you stand today, where you're at, what your skills are, what your strengths are, what your attributes are, before we can start to determine, what do you want? What do you want to be working on as you're designing your professional future? So in coaching, we call self-assessment establishing yourself or true self, right? Before deciding on ideal self, where you want to be. So coaching actually lives sort of in between. You have self, where you're at today, ideal self, where you want to be a year from now. And so coaching is really the vehicle that takes you from here to here. And the way that we start, the place that we start, is through self-assessment. Assessment helps us to articulate background information on your strengths, interests, values, motivation, the roles that we play, the hats that we wear. So understanding this, realizing it, is really the first step to move us closer to answering that question of, professionally, what do you want?
Okay, so we are going to get started on our first life design exercise. And as a reminder, we are today working on self-empathy, self-definition. So very similar to what Carly described as your true self. So really trying to find who you are, what makes you tick. And this is a really great exercise. This comes from oh my gosh, I'm now like blanking, Finding Your Element, which is by Sir Ken Robinson, who's a phenomenal educator. He actually just passed away this past year, but he has a lot of TED Talks on the concept of education and building a life of meaning that are really worth checking out. But this particular exercise, I've shortened just slightly because of time purposes, but it's 3 distinct stages. So to get started, we're going to go through these steps together, but I would like for you to pull out a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. Because we are doing this course virtually, if you would prefer to use Word document or something that you have on your laptop or desktop, that's perfectly fine. But just want you to get out piece of paper and a pen, something to write with, something to create a visual with. And so the first step of this exercise is we are going to start to map out the roles that we play. And so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this. So what I want you to do is put your name in the center of a circle. And then I'm going to give you 2 minutes to list out every role that you play in your life. So, of course, most of us will naturally go to roles we play in our family or positions we have at our jobs. That's all great. But I want you to think a little bit beyond that. So if you're the person in your family who does the grocery shopping, or you're the person who walks the dog, or you're the person in charge of planning the vacations, whatever it is, think about everything that comprises your life on a daily, weekly basis. Because by the end of the 2 minutes, I want you to have a very rough but pretty accurate template of what your life looks like, and what fills your life in terms of roles and activities. So I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to go mute, and you will have 2 minutes to list out every single role that you fulfill on a daily and weekly basis. And the time starts now.
Anna, can I do this too?
Yes, please. Okay, so you can put your pen or pencils down. Obviously, we have shortened this exercise. So if you do want to revisit, remember, we're just giving you some tools that you can go back to over and over again. So you can always expand on any one of these steps. And I am going to have you share out if you feel comfortable at the end. But for now, I just want to ask you a couple of questions to reflect on. When you look at this kind of life picture of all the roles that you play, which are the ones that you engage in the most? Is there something that is not on that list that you would like to try? Or is there a role you would like to kind of take on or fulfill? And if it isn't on that list, is there a reason why? Has there been some kind of obstacle preventing you? So something to think about as we kind of get a bigger picture of all the roles that we play. The next step of this exercise, step 2, is where I want you to pick one of those roles. So for me, I listed out 4 roles. I decided to pick, for the purpose of this exercise, fitness coach. Obviously, with more time, you could build out each individual role in this step 2, but we're just going to pick one for today. And so then in step 2, what I want you to do is take that one role. Carly, could we go to the next slide? And what I want you to do is I want you in 2 minutes, I'll give you another 2 minutes, list out every skill or aptitude required for you to be successful in that role. So as an example, I'm a fitness coach. I listed out every skill or aptitude that I needed to be successful as a fitness coach. So everything from needing to be able to read people, to being able to help people map goals, to understanding how to prevent injuries. So just thinking through what is every single aptitude or ability or skill set you need to be successful in the role that you chose. And 2 minutes is on the clock. Okay, pens and pencils down. So now we have one final step of this exercise, and then I'm going to ask you some questions and see if anybody would like to kind of chime in and share their experience. But for this step 3, what I want you to do is go through all of those skills and aptitudes that you just came up with, and I want you to in some way code them. You can use colors, you can use stars, circles, however you want to kind of differentiate them. But I want you to start to determine, of those skills and aptitudes, which ones are you good at? Which ones do you think you're, I'm so at that? And which of the skills and aptitudes do you think, this isn't my forte, this isn't my bag? So take another 2 minutes, final step in this process. Which skills and aptitudes are you good at? Are you not so good at? And are you so at? 2 minutes on the clock. Okay, so I want you just to take a look at everything you've created so far and ask yourself a couple of questions just to reflect on. When you're looking specifically at the skills or aptitudes you would say you're good at, do they have anything in common? Do you also happen to enjoy these different skills or aptitudes or abilities? And is there any way that any of these things that you're good at could be combined and maybe translated to another hobby, another field, and another job or position? And so those are some things to think about, but I did want to open it up to anybody who is brave enough to participate and share some input. But I would love to hear either your experience with this process or anything interesting that you noticed, especially as we moved into step 3. Anybody want to chime in? I did want to just highlight, I always leave my kind of debrief of my step 3 until the end. But if you look at my step 3, I had put on here some of the things that I think that I'm good at in terms of skills or aptitudes required to be a fitness instructor. I did those in pink. And so I think I'm really great at discipline. I think I'm great at putting curriculum and lessons together. I love motivating people. I'm good at reading people. I'm very much a people person. And so why I highlight my specific example is because when I honestly went through this, if I had at the point of being a fitness instructor asked myself, okay, well, where do I want to go next? And if I had stopped at step one, which a lot of us typically do, it's just how we're trained, well, what role have I had before? What could I move into? What's an adjacent pathway? So if I had asked myself that and said, okay, well, I'm a fitness coach, what else could I do? I may have come up with the idea that, okay, I could be a nutritionist, or I could work at a gym, or maybe I should be, personal trainer in addition to group fitness. But when I started to dig deeper and we start to get to those underlying values, those underlying forces that drive us, and those things that really make up who we are, and maybe perhaps put us in these moments of flow, we start to unveil that, things like lesson planning, motivating people, reading people, working with people, cueing people, and walking through people, their processes. Actually, there are a lot more adjacent pathways to those set of skills than I would have ever explored if I had stopped at that place of looking at the role. And so when I start to look at these skills that I'm really great at, well, now I've kind of opened up to, well, maybe I should be a teacher, or maybe I should develop curriculum. And that's actually a much more natural fit than, say, moving somewhere else in the exercise industry. And the reason why I highlight this is because everything in life design, especially in these early empathy definition stages, are just about, let's take this lens off and put this different lens on. Let's find a different way to explore who we are, to learn more about ourselves, to figure out what makes us tick. Because when we know different, we act differently. And so that's kind of the purpose of this, is just, cool, you may have discovered one or two things, one or two threads to follow that maybe will translate as we start to develop ideas and build a real concrete plan forward. So without further ado, I do want to pass it to Carly, who's going to transition us to the early stages of coaching through her exercise.
So over the course of the next few minutes together, we're going to keep the conversation going with the focus on roles. That's really our theme for today. So if you have that white piece of paper, go ahead and flip it over or grab another one. Or if you're working on the computer, just go ahead and open another screen. All right, really easy first step here. Do a T sideways. We're going to chart some things, save some room above and below so that we can write some things out. Easy peasy, right? All right, step 2. What we're going to be doing is charting roles at different stages of our life. So if you would, go ahead and add some childhood ages in there, maybe some that are important to you, depending on how old you are, some 20s, some 30s in there. My only ask is that you make sure you put the age that you are now, and then 1 year older, 5 years older, and 10 years older. So make sure those are on there as well. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. How are we doing? Good? Okay. So what we're going to do in the last activity, Anna really nicely had us sort of pull out these important roles and then pull out the skills, attributes, strengths that are related to them, and then also to see how they're transferable to other areas that we might be interested in exploring. For this, we are going to sort of create a visual description, a visual of all of our roles sort of throughout our lives. So for step 1, what I would like you to do is write down some roles that you had during childhood. If they were positive roles for you, put them above the line. If they were roles that were a little more difficult, they were more negative roles, put them below the line. So we'll start with childhood and younger first. I just use these as an example, but I will say I am a middle child. and I loved being an older sister. I did not like being a younger sister. So love to be bossy. So I'll give you a minute to sort of go through and write those out. So childhood roles. All right. So you might have something that looks like this. Maybe you've got lots of roles. I'd like you to continue on now and really focus on professional roles mostly, but you can include some personal roles too. You might get something that looks like this. So 20s, 30s, I'm old. So, my line is long at this point. So really 20s, if that's where you're at, but just make sure you stop at the age that you are right now. Again, positive roles above, more negative, more difficult roles below. And we'll do about a minute. I know that there's so many roles that we fill here, but I just want to be respectful of your time. One thing that I do want to mention as you're working on this, I always put a little asterisk next to my first job, because first jobs do not get enough credit, whether it's a babysitter, a dog walker. The skills that we learn during our first jobs, these are very rarely high profile anything, but the skills, the life skills and professional skills that we use during first jobs, communication, customer service, patience, interpersonal skills, they will carry you throughout your entire life. Okay, so now that we have that, just sort of box this last one. Now look at, additionally, I am older than 35, so that 45 is not correct for me. But what I will say is go ahead and write out the roles you hope to be in. So you've done now, I know we don't have a lot of time, but you've done the roles that you've been in from today and back. What I'd like you to do is write down the roles you hope to be in the next year, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. Again, this step alone could take 15, 20, 30 minutes, but for the purpose of our time today, I'll give you about 2 minutes for this. All right, how are we doing? I'm not trying to rush you. Again, of any of the activities or tools that Anna and I have introduced today, take them back, work on them, noodle around on them, sleep on it, come back, write some more tomorrow. That's the fun part of the process. All right, so we're going to move into some questions. So on that same sheet, give me a 1, 2, and 3. So question number 1, what do you notice about the roles above the line, the positive roles? Any patterns, anything that comes up, similarities in those roles, skills perhaps that you're replicating within those roles? And then, of course, later on, you can go into what made them positive for you, really sort of pull them apart. Same thing for question number 2. Go ahead and peek at those roles below the line, your negative roles. What comes up there? Any similarities, any patterns? If you could summarize them in one sentence, what would you say? And then finally, question 3. When you look at that timeline, what comes up for you when you're looking at those future roles? Is there anything similar? What are you seeing about them that perhaps you want to be working on in the next month, week, year, 5 years, 10 years? Any patterns, any similarities? If you could summarize it in one sentence, go ahead and write it under number 3. Okay. Drum roll, please. Analysis. Here we go. All right. So what does all this mean? So for the purpose of this activity, I wanted to include the childhood roles just because I think it's important to have a full sort of portrait of where we've come from. But really, our childhood roles can be used as awareness, understanding of where we came from, understanding of who we are as humans, and perhaps opportunities for growth and change. So then if you look at that question number 1, right, positive roles, these could be things that motivate you, our passions, where your strengths lie, areas of interest, or potential opportunity. As you look at those negative roles, especially if you're in one of those roles right now that you're considering to be sort of negative, right? Perhaps that's an obstacle or a dead weight, a barrier, something that you want to move past, dominant responses, old patterns, okay? And then finally, your future roles. So your answer to number 3, this is really where coaching lives. The answer to number 3, where are you going professionally? What do you want? So this is inspiration, unrealized potential, future opportunities, future growth, and it becomes sort of the agenda item, what you're working on over the course of this course and moving forward. So I just wanted to include sort of a messy example here of when this has been done before. Lots of different roles here, but you can see the 3 answers. And so number 3 there is boxed in, and the answer is growth within current industry. So as a coach, the first question that comes up is, how do you define growth? What does growth mean for you? So then you get really specific about what that is. What does that look like? And then you can start sort of mind mapping, workshopping. How do you get there? Do you need a certification? Do you need to start building your network? What options are available to you in order to work toward that number 3, that role that you want to be in? Okay. Any questions, any feedback about that before we move on? You're good, you're tired, ready to eat your dinner? All right.
Okay, so we are now wrapping up as we get to the end. And so let's just chart the path forward a little bit. So as Carly kind of mentioned, we have done some initial assessments, some empathy work, some define work, some assessment work. We've started to look at how we could map out an agenda. And so really all of that assessment and understanding work is meant to kind of pave the way for what's to come, or where can this growth go and how do we chart the course ahead? And so that is why before we get to actual action planning next week, we have this wonderful time designated for ideation. And so in life design or in design thinking, ideation is the space we create where we get to think really big, broadly, and creatively. And so the really special part and the fun part of ideation is that there is no judgment and no censorship when we start to design these ideas. And so as I take you through what your homework is going to be, I want you to keep in mind nothing should stop you from writing down an idea. It doesn't have to be feasible. It doesn't have to be something you can afford. It doesn't have to be immediately attainable. You're just writing out as many ideas. And we really wanted to block that censorship. And so this is your kind of fun space to think of outer space ideas, flying monkeys, anything that comes to mind. And so the exercise that we have for you is really reasonable. It's only 5 to 7 minutes of your time. And we really want you to put a cap on that because that also helps you to prevent judgment and censorship. And so I'm going to walk you through what this exercise is going to look like, open it up for questions, and we'll kind of wrap up today because I know we're at time. So the exercise that we have for you, of course, we could choose 100 different ideation exercises, but we have a mind map for you. And so there are 3 key steps, and we're going to email these instructions out after the session, so you don't have to write these down, but I am going to show you an example and walk you through what you'll be doing. Okay, so moving on to the mind map. Your first task in designing a mind map is to come up with a topic. And I think this is probably the most challenging piece because there's no right or wrong answer. So if you came into this session today and let's say you wanted to find your dream job and that was your goal of this session, and you did some work in the exercises that we just completed and you decided that it came up for you that you really love being outdoors. Maybe this is something you discovered. That could be a topic that you chose. You could choose being outdoors. Granted, you could choose 100 different topics. So just choose a topic for the purpose of what came up for you, what kind of, came to the surface when you did these exercises, and start there. From that topic, you're going to place that in the middle of a piece of paper. And again, in the spirit of life design, we're always very visual. So we do this by hand. And then I want you to come up with 5 or 6 ideas related to that central topic. And this is where the self-censorship could come in. You don't want to overthink it. The first 5 or 6 ideas or words that come to mind when you think about that topic. Once you have those 5 or 6 ideas, you then go one level out. From each one of those 5 or 6 ideas, What are the 5 or 6 words or ideas that come to mind when you think of that? And so I want you to set a timer for 5 minutes, because technically you could keep going with this forever, and you could have something the size of your wall. So we want to limit it just a little bit. So 5 minutes on the clock, write out as many ideas as you can. We're really navigating around that self-censorship. And then, because I don't want you to spend more than 7 minutes on this exercise, I want you to spend the final 2 minutes doing 2 different things. Number one, I want you to spend a minute circling any of those ideas or words on that piece of paper that jump out at you. They could just be things that speak to you. They could be things that you're really interested in. They could just be, again, threads that you want to follow, things you're curious about. And then I want you to take a minute, and in that 7th minute, I want you to decide, how could these things that I just circled, how could I mash them together? And how could they represent a next step to experiment with? It doesn't have to be fully thought through. This doesn't have to be something set in stone. It's just, what if? Like, what could be if I put these things together? What is it telling me? So again, we're inquirers, we're not investigators, we're just learning more. And that's the point of this ideation exercise. And when we come back together next week, we're going to debrief, share out. So bring your very rough exercise. Do not polish it. Do not, what was I going to say? Laminate it. Don't make it pretty. It's supposed to be rough around the edges. So bring what you have next week, 5 to 7 minutes of work, and then we will debrief. And again, we'll email out instructions for this exercise so you don't have to remember them.
Anna and I love messes, so make sure you've got a lot there. All right. So finally, if you're enjoying this type of work and want to continue on, we are offering, beyond this course, a 5-week academy for emerging leadership. It'll be beginning this fall. It's with the Office of Executive Education at Carey, and the program will really go in depth on developing your leadership skills. We'll be offering weekly 2-hour modules on communication, teamwork, personal finance, and more. The program also includes one-on-one coaching, my favorite, as well as a professional leadership challenge for each participant. So we're so excited about this program. So please reach out to me. My email is there, or the Office of Executive Education if you're interested. Additionally, the Office of Executive Education offers open enrollment and certificate programs in courses such as this one, human-centered design, finance, leadership, management. So please check out that website there as well. So that's it. And that's all, my friends. For both Anna and myself, thank you so much for signing up for this course, for engaging with us in our living lab. We'll bring it back to life next week, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.